Hi, I'm Chad with Move Forward Guitar. This lesson is from our series, How to Memorize Guitar Notes. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how you can use sequences to help you memorize all the notes on your fretboard. First off, if you like all the diagrams from this series, including the diagrams from this lesson, you can download our free e-guide, Memorize Guitar Notes. But I am working on it right now as I'm filming this lesson, so it might not be available as you're watching the lesson. But once it is available, a link will pop up on the screen that will allow you to download it. And like I said, it's free, so there's no reason not to download it when it is available. This is part 15 from our series, How to Memorize Guitar Notes. If you'd like to go back and start at the beginning, you can click the link on the screen. So in this lesson, I'm going to show you a trick for memorizing the fretboard with sequences, or they're also known as melodic patterns. And basically, you're just taking a group of notes and playing them in some sort of pattern or sequence and repeating that same pattern with the same notes on other spots on the neck. So in the last lesson, we looked at note clusters, which was just a grouping of notes, but we weren't worried about what octave the notes were in. So for example, you could hit an F note on the 1st fret on the 6th string, or you could hit an F note on the 13th fret on the 6th string. It didn't really matter. It just mattered that it was an F note. In this lesson, all the distances between all the notes are going to stay the same when you move to each of the different string sets. And I'll explain as we're going if that's confusing. So again, we're just going to start with the C major scale because it's all the natural notes and it's a good starting point. It's easier to visualize than starting with every note on the fretboard. So first, we're just going to take a group of notes again, and this time we're going to take C, F, G, E. And this is just a random grouping of notes that I've picked, and I'm going to turn it into a sequence just showing you. So if I turn this into a sequence on the 6th and 5th string, then I would have my C here. I would then drop down towards the floor to play the F. Then I go up and play the G on the same string, which is the 5th string. And then I'd play the E on the 6th string. So it'd be C would be 1, F would be 2, G would be 3, E would be 4. That would be the order you played those notes in. So as we move this to other strings, you're going to play those in the same order. And the distances between all the notes, meaning, for example, and you might not understand this if you don't know theory, but for example, C to F right here is a perfect fourth apart. So when we play this on other strings, it's still going to be a perfect fourth apart. I wouldn't play an F in a different octave. Or the F to the G is a whole step apart, which is a major second. So I would keep that a whole step apart or a major second apart on the other strings, and so on. And also the thing we're going to do is if it's played on, for example, this is played on 2 adjacent strings, when we move it and find it in other spots, we're going to keep it on 2 adjacent strings. So right now I'm showing you a sequence on the 6th and 5th string. The next one would be on the 5th and 4th string. So we wouldn't be skipping strings or putting these notes on different strings by using unisons. So it keeps it a little simpler actually. So the whole point of this is to actually play a sequence of notes and then remember how they were played and move them to the other spots on the fretboard. And we're not worried about being in the same pitch. It can be in other octaves, which it'll have to be as it moves in different spots on the fretboard. Just anywhere we can find this group of notes and play them on 2 adjacent strings in this order and have the distances between all the notes be the same. So again, just like note clusters, this is really going to open up your eyes to being able to play notes that you find anywhere on the fretboard. And I'll dive even deeper into this concept when I talk about licks and playing that all over the fretboard. But for this lesson, we'll keep it fairly simple. If it's on 2 adjacent strings, you keep it on 2 adjacent strings, and you play it in the order right here, which is just a random group of notes that I picked. It doesn't matter, so I'd play C, F, G, E, and I'm just going to find all the spots I can do that on the fretboard. So for example, now we're going to move to the 5th and 4th strings. It would be right here. You can see the shape has still stayed the same, which would mean that all the distances between the notes are the same, and then you just played in the same order. And this is actually unison to what I just showed on the 6th and 5th string. It just happens to be that when you move it down to these 2 strings. But you could also play it up here and do the same thing if you can reach high enough on your fretboard. You could play C right here, and if you could reach all the other notes on your fretboard, if you have an electric guitar, you could do the same thing. So it wouldn't matter that it was in a different octave. So then I would just keep finding it on all the string sets that I can. So now I'd move to the next 2 string sets. You can see it's the exact same shapes, the same notes, just play them in that order. Move them to the next 2 string sets, and now since I've hit that B string, which you should know by this point, anytime you hit that B string, the shape changes. these two notes have to move up half a step or 1 fret to accommodate for the tuning between these two strings. But still, all the distances between these notes are the exact same as we started with. And then you just play it in this order. And then the last string set, it would go back to the same shape that we had, and it's actually because these two notes actually have moved up half a step, and then it just turned it back into the same shape. But you could play this here, or you could also play it with your C right here and find the notes. So that's all you're going to do. You can take any random group of notes, play them in some sort of sequence, some sort of order, some sort of pattern, and then find them all over the fretboard, as many places as you can, keeping the notes the same distance apart. And if you're on 2 adjacent strings, keep them on 2 adjacent strings. If you're skipping strings, which I'll show in a sec, skip strings. So really the pattern, the shape of the sequence is going to stay the same everywhere on the fretboard unless you hit the second string. And this is just a really good exercise for quickly being able to play something anywhere on your fretboard and then finding every other place you could play it in all the different octaves. This will be really useful when you're improvising as well. So not only does it help you memorize where notes are, this will really open up doors when you're improvising. And like I said, that was just a random group of notes that I picked. You can pick any notes and do this. I recommend starting with the C major scale, which all the natural notes, so that it makes it a little simpler. But I could do something more complicated like going E, F, D, E, A, B, C and playing a sequence with those notes. And for example, if I played it here, I would be playing E, F, and then I'd be skipping a string, playing D, E, and then A, B, C. So now if you find this everywhere on the fretboard, they would be on 3 adjacent strings, but when you play the first, after you play the first 2 notes, then you skip a string, play the next 2 notes, and then you go back to this string to play it. So it would stay that way everywhere you found it. And the shape would be the same unless you hit that second string again. So if I hit that second string anywhere, the shape's going to change. But still, all the distances between these notes are the same, and I'd play them in the exact same order. So that's just a really good exercise you can use to help you memorize the notes up and down your fretboard. Once you've done it with C major scale, you can make it more complicated and do it with the chromatic scale, which is all the notes, and just pick random notes and do the same thing. And like I said, not only will this help you memorize notes up and down the fretboard, be able to quickly find where they are, but it'll really help you in your improvising so that you can play something one place on the fretboard and then you can find it everywhere else in all the octaves. And like I said, we'll take this a step further when I talk about how to do this with licks. So that's how you can memorize notes using sequences. Go ahead and move on to the next lesson where I'm going to show you how you can use notes using visualization. And be sure to download the e-guide. All the diagrams are in there. And be sure to subscribe because we have at least one new lesson every day.